Have you ever been loved conditionally? Where every smile hides judgment, every hug comes with strings attached, and every kind word is just a setup for the next criticism. That was my life with my mother-in-law, Constance Whitmore, for 23 years. But I never imagined that her cruelty ran so deep that she tried to destroy my marriage before it even began. And I certainly never expected my 8-year-old daughter, Violet, to be the one who'd finally force me to confront the truth that had been hidden in plain sight all along. My name is Delilah Chen Whitmore, and this is the story of how a single letter unraveled decades of lies, manipulations, and a mother-in-law's desperate attempt to keep her son all to herself. The question that changed everything. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon in November 2023 when my world shifted on its axis. I was in the kitchen of our Seattle home, preparing my famous honey-glazed salmon, ironically, a recipe I'd learned from Constance back when she still pretended to like me. My husband, Jonathan, was at his architecture firm, working on a project that had consumed his weekends for months. Our daughter Violet, 8 years old with her father's green eyes and my stubborn streak, sat at the kitchen table, supposedly doing homework. But she wasn't working on her spelling words. She was staring at me with an intensity that made my hands still over the cutting board. "Mama," she said quietly, her voice carrying that serious tone that always preceded her most difficult questions. "Why doesn't Grandma Constance love you?" The knife slipped from my fingers, clattering against the counter. I turned to face my daughter, my heart suddenly pounding in my chest. "What makes you think Grandma doesn't love me, sweetheart?" I asked, forcing my voice to remain steady even as my stomach churned. Violet's lower lip trembled. "I heard her talking to Aunt Priscilla on the phone last week when we were at her house," she said. Violet paused, tears welling in her eyes. "She said you trapped Daddy into marriage and that you're not good enough for our family. She said you're—" what was the word? Opportunistic. Tick. The word hit me like a physical blow. Opportunistic. After 23 years of marriage, 3 miscarriages, raising Violet through her premature birth and fragile first year, building a life alongside Jonathan through his father's death and his mother's cancer scare. After all of that, Constance still saw me as nothing more than a gold digger who'd somehow ensnared her precious son. I knelt down beside Violet's chair, taking her small hands in mine. "Baby, sometimes adults have complicated feelings about things. Grandma Constance. She loves your daddy very much, and sometimes when people love someone a lot, they have trouble sharing that love with others." "But you're not taking Daddy away from her," Violet protested, her voice rising with indignation. "You gave her me, and you always make sure we visit her, even when Daddy's too busy. You send her flowers on her birthday and you made her that photo album last Christmas. Why would she say mean things about you?" Out of the mouths of babes, as they say. My 8-year-old daughter had just articulated something I'd been trying to make sense of for over 2 decades. "I don't know, sweetie," I admitted, because what else could I say? How could I explain to my child that her grandmother had made it her life's mission to make me feel inferior, unwelcome and temporary? Violet was quiet for a moment, then she said something that would change everything. "Mama, last month when Grandma thought I was napping, I saw her take some old letters out of a box in her closet. She was reading one and crying. It had your name on the envelope. I saw it said Miss Delilah Chen in fancy writing. Why would Grandma have old letters with your name on them?" My blood ran cold. Letters with my name on them, from before Jonathan and I were married, given the use of Miss. "Are you sure, Violet?" I asked, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. She nodded vigorously. "I'm sure, Mama. The envelope was yellow and old-looking, and it was in a wooden box with flowers carved on it. There were other letters too, but that was the only one she took out." The discovery. That night after Violet was asleep and Jonathan had finally come home, exhausted and distracted, I couldn't stop thinking about what my daughter had told me. Letters with my maiden name, hidden in Constance's closet. Why? The next morning was Sunday, and as fate would have it, Constance had called earlier in the week to ask if Violet could spend the afternoon with her. She wanted to take her granddaughter to the Seattle Asian Art Museum, she'd said, something I'd found surprising given that Constance had always seemed dismissive of my Chinese heritage. Jonathan was planning to use the free afternoon to catch up on work, which meant I had the perfect opportunity. Actually, I told Jonathan over breakfast, "Why don't I drop Violet off? I can help your mother with that leaky faucet she mentioned. You know how she is about calling plumbers." Jonathan looked up from his phone, surprised but pleased. "Really? That would be great, Del. I know my mom can be." Difficult, but I appreciate you making an effort. If only he knew that my effort had nothing to do with home repairs and everything to do with finding out what his mother had been hiding from me for God knows how long. At 1 p.m., I dropped Violet off at Constance's pristine colonial-style home in Medina, Washington, just across Lake Washington from Seattle. The house had always intimidated me, all white columns and manicured gardens, a monument to old money and older prejudices. "I'll pick you up at 5 p.m, baby," I told Violet, kissing her forehead. To Constance, who stood in the doorway in her signature pearls and cashmere, I said, "I need to run some errands nearby. Is it all right if I use your bathroom quickly before I go?" Constance's smile was tight, but she nodded. "Of course, you know where it is." Once inside, I made a show of heading toward the first-floor powder room, but the moment I heard Constance and Violet's voices fade toward the kitchen, I changed course. My heart hammering, I climbed the carpeted stairs to the second floor, moving as quietly as possible. I'd been in Constance's bedroom only a handful of times over the years, usually when helping her find something or delivering laundry when she'd been ill. But I remembered the layout, the king-size bed that had once been hers and Jonathan's late father's, the antique dresser, and the large walk-in closet. The closet smelled of lavender sachets and expensive perfume. I scanned the shelves quickly, looking for a wooden box with carved flowers. It took me 3 precious minutes, during which I was certain Constance would come upstairs and discover me snooping, but finally I spotted it on a high shelf, pushed behind several shoeboxes. My hands shook as I pulled it down. The box was beautiful, made of cherry wood with intricate rose carvings on the lid. It looked like something that should contain jewelry or precious keepsakes, not whatever secrets lay inside. I opened it. There were indeed several letters inside, maybe a dozen, along with some old photographs and what looked like legal documents. But right on top, exactly as Violet had described, was a yellowed envelope addressed in elegant fountain pen. Miss Delilah Chen, 2847 University Way, NE. Seattle, WA 98105. My old apartment, the one I'd lived in during my senior year at the University of Washington, before Jonathan and I got married in June 2001. With trembling fingers, I pulled the letter from its envelope. The paper was thick, expensive stationery, and the handwriting was unmistakably Constance's. I'd seen it on enough birthday cards and thank-you notes over the years. What I read made my blood turn to ice. March 15, 2001. Dear Miss Chen, I am writing to you regarding my son, Jonathan Whitmore. It has come to my attention that you and Jonathan are planning to marry after his graduation this spring. I feel it is my duty as his mother to intervene before you make a terrible mistake, or rather, before you trick my son into making one. I have had you investigated, Miss Chen. I know that you come from a modest background. Your mother works as a seamstress in the International District. Your father passed away when you were 12, and you and your younger brother were raised in a 2-bedroom apartment on Beacon Hill. While there is no shame in poverty, there is shame in deceit. You met my son when you were waitressing at that dreadful coffee shop near campus. You saw a wealthy, kind-hearted young man from a prominent family, and you set your sights on him. You've played your part well, the struggling scholarship student, the sweet girl with big dreams. You've made Jonathan feel like a hero for rescuing you from your difficult circumstances. But I see through you, Miss Chen. You are an opportunist, a gold digger. You don't love my son, you love what he represents: security, wealth, a way out of your lower-class existence. I am prepared to offer you $150,000 to walk away. That's more money than your mother makes in 5 years. Take it. Disappear from Jonathan's life. Tell him whatever you want, that you've met someone else, that you're not ready for marriage, that you want to focus on your career. I don't care, just leave. If you refuse this generous offer, I will ensure that Jonathan learns the truth about you. I will show him evidence of every calculating move you've made, every lie you've told. I will prove to him that you've been using him from the start. I will make certain that he sees you for exactly what you are. You have 1 week to decide. Contact me at the number below. Constance Whitmore. I had to read it 3 times before the words fully sank in. Then I sank onto the plush carpet of Constance's closet, the letter still clutched in my shaking hands, and I began to cry. She'd tried to pay me to leave Jonathan. She'd had me investigated like I was some kind of criminal. She'd called me a gold digger, accused me of lying and manipulating, threatened to destroy my relationship with the man I loved. And I'd never received this letter, never known about this offer, this ultimatum, these vile accusations. Which meant, I looked back into the box and found what I was looking for. Another envelope, addressed in Jonathan's handwriting to me at the same apartment address. The postmark was from March 18, 2001, 3 days after Constance's letter was dated. I opened it with numb fingers. My dearest Delilah, I'm writing this letter because I need you to understand something important. My mother came to see me today. She's concerned about our engagement, and while I know she can be overprotective, I want you to know that nothing she says or does can change how I feel about you. Mom seems to think you're marrying me for my family's money. It's absurd, I know. You're the most genuine, hard-working person I've ever met. You've never asked me for anything. You insisted on paying for your own textbooks even when I offered to help. You work 2 jobs to support yourself even though I've told you 1,000 times that you don't have to. But my mother is stubborn, and she's decided that anyone who doesn't come from her social circle must be after something. It's insulting to both of us, but especially to you. I want you to know that I've told her in no uncertain terms that I'm going to marry you with or without her approval. You are the love of my life, Delilah. You make me laugh. You challenge me. You see me for who I really am, not for the Whitmore name or the trust fund or any of that nonsense. I'm giving you this letter because I want you to have something in writing, something you can hold on to if my mother ever tries to make you feel unwelcome in our family. You are welcome. You are wanted. You are good enough, more than good enough. You are everything. I love you, Delilah Chen. I will love you when we're old and grey. I will love you through whatever challenges life throws at us. And I will never, ever let anyone, not even my own mother, make you feel like you're anything less than the extraordinary woman you are. Forever yours, Jonathan. I was sobbing now, ugly crying into my hands in the middle of Constance's closet. Jonathan had written me this beautiful, heartfelt letter defending me against his mother's accusations, and I'd never received it. Because Constance had intercepted both letters. She'd written to me with her poison, and when Jonathan had tried to counteract it with love, she'd stolen that too. I'd never known any of this had happened. I'd married Jonathan in June 2001, completely unaware that his mother had tried to pay me off, that she'd had me investigated, that she'd threatened to destroy our relationship. And I'd spent the next 23 years bending over backwards to win her approval, never understanding why she looked at me with such cold contempt. Because in her mind, I was the gold digger who'd refused her bribe and married her son anyway. I carefully returned both letters to their envelopes and placed them in my purse. Then I looked through the other contents of the box more carefully. There were letters between Constance and someone named Detective Morrison from a private investigation firm, detailing my financial situation, my family background, my work history. Everything about me laid bare and judged wanting. There were also letters between Constance and Jonathan's late father, Richard, with Constance writing about her concerns that Jonathan was throwing his life away on an unsuitable match, and Richard's responses urging her to let the boy make his own choices. And there was one more letter that made my blood boil, a draft of a letter Constance had written but apparently never sent, dated August 2001. 2 months after our wedding. Dear Priscilla. Well, Jonathan went through with it. He married that Chen girl despite everything I tried to do to prevent it. I've decided that the best course of action is to maintain a facade of acceptance while making it clear through subtle means that she will never truly be part of this family. I will attend family functions and maintain basic civility, but I will not form a genuine bond with her. I will remind her in every possible way that she is an outsider. I will make comments about family traditions she doesn't understand. I will give her gifts that subtly reference her lower class background. I will question her choices as a wife and eventually as a mother. I cannot stop Jonathan from being married to her, but I can make certain she never feels secure in that marriage. Perhaps if she feels unwelcome enough, she'll eventually leave on her own. Your sister, Constance, 23 years. She'd spent 23 years executing this plan. Every dismissive comment, every backhanded compliment, every time she'd made me feel small or inadequate, it had all been deliberate. A systematic campaign to make me feel like I didn't belong, to slowly poison my marriage from the outside. And it had almost worked. There had been times, especially in the early years, when I'd wondered if Jonathan wouldn't be better off with someone from his own background. Someone Constance would actually approve of. Someone who instinctively knew which fork to use at fancy dinners and could discuss summer homes in the Hamptons and prep school memories. But I'd stayed, because I loved Jonathan, and because I'd believed that if I just tried hard enough, was kind enough, patient enough, eventually Constance would accept me. Now I knew the truth. She never intended to accept me. Her cruelty wasn't something I could overcome with effort, it was her life's mission. I took photos of every letter, every document in that box with my phone. Then I carefully replaced everything exactly as I'd found it, put the box back on the shelf, and walked out of that closet with my head held high for the first time in Constance Whitmore's house. The confrontation. I didn't go home, I couldn't. I was too angry, too hurt, too full of righteous fury. Instead, I went to my best friend Margaret's house. Margaret had been my roommate in college, had been my maid of honor, and had been telling me for 23 years that Constance was toxic, and I needed to stand up to her. I knew it, Margaret said after I showed her the letters, her face flushed with anger. I knew that woman was sabotaging you. Dell, you have to show these to Jonathan. I will, I promised, but first I'm going to show them to Constance. Margaret's eyes widened. Are you sure that's a good idea? Shouldn't Jonathan be there? I shook my head. This is between me and her. For once, I'm going to face her without trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law. She's going to see me exactly as I am, not the gold digger she imagined, but the woman who's put up with her abuse for over 2 decades and is finally done being nice about it. At 4:45 p.m, I returned to Constance's house. I rang the doorbell instead of using the key Jonathan had given me years ago. I was a guest now, not family, and I wanted her to know it. Constance opened the door looking surprised. Delilah, you're early. Violet and I were just finishing our tea. I need to speak with you, I said, my voice calm but carrying an edge I'd never used with her before. Privately. Something in my tone must have alarmed her because her smile faltered. Of course. Violet, darling, why don't you watch TV in the den while I speak with your mother? Once Violet was out of earshot, Constance led me to her formal living room. A space I'd always found coldly beautiful, full of antiques and artwork that seemed designed to remind visitors of their inferior status. What's this about? Constance asked, settling into her wingback chair like a queen on her throne. I didn't sit. Instead, I pulled the letters from my purse and dropped them on the coffee table between us. These, I said simply. Constance's face went white. She looked at the letters, then at me, then back at the letters. Where did you get those? From your closet. Violet told me she'd seen them. You went through my private things. Constance's voice rose with indignation. How dare you? How dare I? I cut her off, and there must have been something dangerous in my voice because she actually flinched. How dare you? You had me investigated. You tried to bribe me to leave Jonathan. You intercepted his letter to me. And then, when I married him anyway, you spent the next 23 years trying to make me feel worthless. I was protecting my son. From what? I demanded. From love, from happiness, from a woman who spent over 2 decades trying to be good enough for him, for you, for this family. Constance stood up, her hands shaking. You don't understand, you came from nothing. You were going to drag Jonathan down. I came from love, I said fiercely. My mother worked herself to exhaustion to give my brother and me a good life. My father was a teacher who died trying to break up a fight between his students. We didn't have money, but we had values. We had integrity. What do you have, Constance? What do you have except this house full of expensive things and a heart full of cruelty? I have breeding, Constance said, her voice icy. I have family history, I have standards. You have nothing, I said quietly, and somehow that was more cutting than shouting. You have a son who loves me more than he respects you. You have a granddaughter who just asked me why you don't love me, because even at 8 years old, she can see what you really are. And you have a daughter-in-law who's finally done pretending that your approval matters. Constance's facade cracked. If you show those letters to Jonathan. When I show them to Jonathan, I corrected. Not if, when, tonight. He'll never forgive you for going through my things. I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Maybe, or maybe he'll finally understand why I've always been so uncomfortable around you, why I've tried so hard for so long, why I've let you make me feel small. I picked up Jonathan's letter from the coffee table, holding it up. But more importantly, he's going to read this. He's going to see that 23 years ago, he wrote me a beautiful letter promising to stand by me against anyone who tried to make me feel unwelcome. And he's going to realize that you stole that from us. You stole his words, his support, his chance to defend the woman he loved from his own mother's attacks. Constance sank back into her chair, suddenly looking older than her 72 years. I was wrong, she whispered. What? I said I was wrong. She looked up at me, and for the first time I saw something that might have been genuine emotion in her eyes. About you. I was wrong about you, Delilah. I waited, saying nothing. When you and Jonathan first started dating, I was terrified, Constance continued. Richard, Jonathan's father, he came from old money too, but his mother, she was a social climber. She married Richard's father for his money, and she made all of our lives miserable. She was cold, calculating, cruel. And when Richard died in 2008, I kept thinking, what if Delilah is like her? What if she's just been biding her time? So you decided to make my life hell just in case? I asked incredulously. I decided to protect myself, Constance said. I decided that if you were going to hurt my family, I'd hurt you first. I'd make sure you never felt comfortable enough to really sink your claws in. Your metaphor is showing, I said coldly. I don't have claws, Constance. I have a job. I'm a pediatric nurse. I've spent my career caring for sick children. I held your hand when you had cancer. I took care of you after your knee surgery. I've been nothing but kind to you, and you've spent more than 2 decades punishing me for a crime I never committed. I know, Constance whispered. I've watched you all these years. I've seen how you care for Jonathan, how you've been a wonderful mother to Violet, how you've never asked for anything. And I've hated myself for what I did, but I was too proud to admit I was wrong. Too proud to apologize for something I started 23 years ago. So what now? I asked. Do you think an apology fixes this? Do you think saying I was wrong erases decades of emotional abuse? Constance looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. No, I don't think that. I don't think anything fixes this. I think I've lost my son, and my granddaughter, and any chance of you ever not hatting me. Part of me wanted to agree with her. Part of me wanted to walk out of that house and never come back, to cut Constance out of our lives completely. But there was another part of me, the part that had spent 23 years trying to build bridges, that couldn't quite let go. I don't hate you, I said finally, but I don't trust you, and I won't pretend anymore. I won't bend over backwards trying to win your approval. I won't let you make me feel less than who I am. And if you ever say anything to Violet about me not being good enough, if you poison my daughter against me the way you tried to poison Jonathan against me, I will make sure you never see her again. Do you understand? Constance nodded, unable to speak. I'm going to show Jonathan these letters, I continued. What he decides to do about our relationship with you is up to him, but I'm done being the one who mediates between you two. I'm done being the one who makes excuses for your behavior. You're going to have to face the consequences of what you've done. I gathered the letters and headed toward the den to collect Violet. Delilah, Constance called out. I turned back. For what it's worth, she said, her voice breaking, you're a better woman than I ever was, and Jonathan is lucky to have you. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say that wouldn't be either cruel or dishonest, and I'd had enough of both for one day. The truth comes out. That night after Violet was asleep, I showed Jonathan the letters. I'd wondered how he would react, with anger at his mother, anger at me for snooping, or perhaps with the same diplomatic tendency to smooth things over that had characterized his relationship with both of us for years. What I didn't expect was for my husband of 23 years to break down crying. She intercepted my letter, he kept saying, reading and rereading the letter he'd written to me in 2001. Del, I wrote this to you. I wanted you to have it. I wanted you to know that I saw what she was doing, that I was on your side, and she took it. I know, I said softly, sitting beside him on our bed. And this, he held up Constance's letter to me, his hands shaking. She tried to pay you to leave me. She had you investigated like you were a criminal, and you never knew. Never, I confirmed. I thought, Jonathan, all these years I thought her coldness toward me was just her personality. I thought maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. I blamed myself. Jonathan looked at me with devastation in his eyes. You've been blaming yourself for her cruelty for 23 years. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. God, Del, he pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could feel his heart racing. I am so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have done more to protect you from her. You didn't know, I said. She was careful. She was always just subtle enough that you could dismiss it as me being oversensitive. And I didn't want to make you choose between us. There's no choice, Jonathan said fiercely. There's never been a choice, it's you, it's always been you. He pulled back to look at me, his eyes red from crying. Do you know why I fell in love with you, Delilah? I shook my head. I fell in love with you because you were the first person who looked at me and didn't see the Whitmore name or the trust fund. You saw me, just Jonathan. The guy who was terrible at poetry but loved architecture. The guy who volunteered at the animal shelter and cried during Pixar movies. You saw all of me, including the parts I tried to hide from everyone else. He cupped my face in his hands. And I have spent 23 years watching you be kind when you had every reason to be bitter. Watching you work night shifts at the hospital and still come home and help Violet with her homework. Watching you take care of my mother when she was sick, even though she's never appreciated it. You are the strongest, most genuine person I know. I don't feel very strong, I admitted. I feel tired. I'm so tired of trying to be good enough for her. You don't have to try anymore, Jonathan said. I'm done. I'm done with her manipulation. I'm done with her making you feel unwelcome. I'm done pretending that her behavior is acceptable just because she's my mother. Jonathan, I don't want to come between you and Constance. She came between herself and me, he interrupted. When she tried to destroy my relationship with the woman I loved, when she stole my letter, when she spent 23 years executing a plan to make you feel like you didn't belong. Those were her choices, not yours. Moving forward. The next day was Sunday. Jonathan called his mother and told her he wanted to meet. She suggested her house, but he insisted on neutral ground, a small cafe in downtown Seattle where they couldn't avoid difficult conversations by retreating to separate rooms. I didn't go. This was between Jonathan and his mother. But Jonathan called me afterwards, and I could hear both anger and sadness in his voice. I told her that things are going to be different now, he said. No more subtle digs at you. No more suggesting that Violet should spend time at her house without you. No more treating you like an outsider in this family. Either she respects you as my wife and Violet's mother, or she doesn't get to be part of our lives. What did she say? I asked. She cried, she apologized. She said she knows she can never make up for what she's done, but she wants to try. I was quiet for a moment, processing this. Do you believe her? I don't know, Jonathan admitted. But I told her that it's not me she needs to convince, it's you. And it's going to take a lot more than words to rebuild what she destroyed. Over the next few weeks, Constance tried. She sent me a handwritten letter, a real apology this time, not a demand or a threat. She sent flowers. She asked if she could take me to lunch, just the two of us, to talk. I said no to the lunch. I wasn't ready for that. But I did agree to meet with her at our house with Jonathan present so we could establish boundaries for moving forward. It was awkward and painful. Constance apologized again, and this time I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. But I also saw something else, a woman who had spent so long viewing me as an enemy that she didn't know how to see me any other way. I need you to understand something, I told her. I don't need you to love me. After everything that's happened, I'm not sure that's even possible. But I need you to respect me. I need you to treat me with basic human decency. And I need you to never, ever, let Violet see you treating me as less than. I understand, Constance said quietly. Do you? I challenged. Because you've spent 23 years undermining me, and I need to know that you understand the damage you've done. Not just to me, but to Jonathan, to Violet, to yourself. Constance was silent for a long moment. Then she said, I've wasted 23 years hatting someone who didn't deserve it. I've pushed away my son. I've taught my granddaughter that love is conditional and that being different is something to be ashamed of. And I've Beck. And I've become the kind of person my own mother-in-law was, the kind of person I swore I'd never be. She looked up at me and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before, vulnerability. I can't undo what I've done, but I can try to do better if you'll let me. The letter to Violet. That night after Constance had left and Violet was getting ready for bed, my daughter asked me the question that had started everything. Mama, is Grandma Constance going to be nicer to you now? I sat down on her bed, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. I think she's going to try, baby. But why was she mean to you in the first place? Violet asked. You're the best mama ever, you're nice to everyone. I thought about how to answer this. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that sometimes people hurt others because they're scared? That sometimes love becomes poisoned by fear and pride? Grandma made a mistake a long time ago, I said carefully. She decided that I wasn't good enough for your daddy, and instead of getting to know me better, she let that belief grow and grow until it affected everything she did. But you know what? That was her problem, not mine. I am good enough. I've always been good enough. Violet nodded seriously. I'm glad you found the letters, Mama. I'm glad Daddy knows what happened. Me too, baby, me too. Mama, Violet said as I was turning off her light. When I grow up, if someone doesn't think I'm good enough, I'm going to remember that you were good enough all along. And I'm going to be strong like you. I kissed her forehead, my heart full. You already are, sweetheart, you already are. Epilogue 1 year later. It's November 2024 now, and a lot has changed in the past year. Constance has been true to her word. She's respectful when we see her, we visit once a month, and she comes to Violet's school events. She asks about my work at the hospital. She remembers my birthday. She includes me in family photos. Is our relationship warm? No, I don't think it ever will be. There's too much history, too much hurt, but it's civil, it's respectful. And most importantly, Violet sees her grandmother treating her mother with dignity. Jonathan and I are closer than ever, working through this crisis together, facing the truth about his mother, establishing boundaries, rebuilding trust, has strengthened our marriage in ways I never expected. He tells me he loves me every single day now, and he makes sure I know that I was always good enough. Last week, Violet came home from school with an assignment for Family Heritage Day. Each student was supposed to interview a family member about their background and present it to the class. I want to interview you, Mama, Violet announced. I want to tell everyone about Grandma Chen and how she came to America and worked hard to give you a good life, and about Grandpa Chen, who was a hero teacher. My eyes filled with tears. Are you sure, baby? You could interview Daddy or Grandma Constance. I want to interview you, Violet insisted. Because you're strong and brave and you never gave up even when things were hard, just like Grandma Chen. The presentation was beautiful. Violet told her classmates about my mother arriving in Seattle from Guangzhou at age 19 with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. She talked about my father's dedication to his students. She showed pictures of our old apartment in Beacon Hill, of my mother's seamstress shop, of me in my nursing school graduation gown. And she concluded with this: my mama taught me that being good enough has nothing to do with how much money you have or where you come from. It has to do with how you treat people and how hard you work and how much love you give. My mama is the best person I know, and I'm proud she's mine. Constance was there for the presentation. She'd asked if she could come, and I'd said yes. I watched her face as Violet spoke, and I saw something I'd never seen before, shame mixed with understanding, maybe even a hint of admiration. After the presentation, she approached me carefully. That was beautiful, she said quietly. Your mother, Violet's grandmother, she sounds like a remarkable woman. She is, I said simply. Constance hesitated, then said something that surprised me. I'd like to meet her, if that would be all right with you. I've been in your family for 23 years and I've never properly met your mother. That was wrong of me. I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or ulterior motive. But all I saw was an elderly woman trying, in her own awkward way, to make amends. I'll ask her, I said, but Constance, my mother is 70 years old. She's worked hard her entire life. She doesn't speak perfect English. And she's the most loving, genuine person you'll ever meet. If you meet her, you treat her with respect. Do you understand? I understand, Constance said. And Delilah, I'm sorry I never gave you the chance to tell me about your family. I'm sorry I judged you without knowing you. I'm sorry for all of it. It wasn't the first time she'd apologized, but this time felt different. This time I believed her. 2 weeks later, I arranged for Constance to meet my mother at our house. I was nervous. My mother knew some of what had happened with Constance, though not all the details. I'd protected her from the worst of it, not wanting to burden her with my problems. But my mother, as always, was gracious. She served tea and homemade egg tarts, and she told Constance stories about raising me and my brother in Seattle, about the challenges of being an immigrant, about building a life from nothing. And Constance listened, really listened. At one point I heard her say, I think I understand now why Delilah is the way she is. She learned from you how to be strong, how to be kind, how to build something meaningful from what you're given. My mother smiled. Delilah is strong because she chooses to be strong. I give her love, but she make her own life. Good life, happy life, with good man and beautiful granddaughter. You're right, Constance said quietly. She did make a good life, despite me trying to ruin it. My mother reached across the table and patted Constance's hand. The past is past. What matter is now. You change, you try, that take courage too. I watched this exchange from the kitchen doorway, tears streaming down my face. My mother, who had every reason to hate Constance for what she'd done to me, was showing her grace and forgiveness. Because that's who my mother is, that's what she taught me. And maybe, just maybe, that's who I could be too. The final revelation. Last month something happened that I didn't expect. Constance invited us to Thanksgiving at her house, as she did every year. But this time, she asked if my mother and my brother David could come too. I want this to be a real family gathering, she said. All of us, the way it should have been from the beginning. And Jonathan and I exchanged glances. Are you sure? I asked carefully. I'm sure, Constance said. I've wasted enough time keeping people separated. I'd like to spend the time I have left bringing people together. Thanksgiving was complicated. My mother brought homemade dumplings and Chinese broccoli to go with the traditional turkey. David, who's a high school math teacher now, brought his girlfriend Melissa, who's black and whom Constance welcomed without a hint of the judgment she'd shown me 23 years ago. During dinner, Violet asked if she could say something. We all quieted down as my 8-year-old daughter stood up, holding a piece of paper. I wrote something for Family Heritage Day that I didn't get to read, she said. It's about all my grandmas, Grandma Chen and Grandma Constance. She cleared her throat and began to read. I have 2 grandmas. Grandma Chen came from far away and worked really hard so my mama could have a good life. She's brave and strong and makes the best dumplings in the world. Grandma Constance comes from a family that's been in America for a really long time. She's smart and elegant and knows a lot about art and history. Both my grandmas are important. Both my grandmas love me. And I think maybe they're finally starting to be friends, which makes me happy because families should love each other, even when it's hard. There wasn't a dry eye at the table. My mother was crying. Constance was crying. I was crying. Even Jonathan and David were getting misty. Thank you, Violet, Constance said, her voice shaking. That was perfect. After dinner, as we were cleaning up, Constance pulled me aside. I have something for you, she said, handing me an envelope. Inside was Jonathan's letter, the original one from 2001, but also something else. A new letter in Constance's handwriting, dated November 2024. Dear Delilah, 23 years ago, I wrote you a letter full of cruelty and judgment. I offered you money to leave my son, and I threatened to destroy your relationship if you didn't comply. That letter represented the worst of who I was, fearful, prejudiced, controlling. I can't take back that letter. I can't undo the years of pain I caused you, but I can write you a new one. Delilah, you are not an opportunist. You are not a gold digger. You are not good enough. You are a dedicated nurse who saves children's lives. You are a loving mother who raises her daughter with grace and strength. You are a loyal wife who has stood by my son through everything. You are a good daughter to your own mother, a supportive sister to your brother, and a better daughter-in-law than I ever deserved. I was wrong about you, not partially wrong. Not wrong in my methods, but right in my concerns. I was completely, utterly wrong. You didn't trap Jonathan, you freed him. You freed him from the weight of expectations, from the shallow world of social climbing and status-seeking that I tried to trap him in. You showed him what real love looks like, unconditional, supportive, genuine. And you've shown me too, though it took me 23 years to see it. I know I can never fully make amends for what I've done. I know our relationship will never be what it could have been if I'd welcomed you from the start. But I want you to know that I see you now. Really see you. And I'm grateful, so grateful, that my son was smart enough to choose you and strong enough to keep you, even when I tried to push you away. You are not just good enough for this family, Delilah. This family is lucky to have you. With respect and regret. Constance. I read the letter twice, then looked up at Constance. She was watching me nervously, this woman who'd spent 2 decades trying to make me feel small. Thank you, I said simply. This means more than you know. Does it change anything, Constance asked, between us? I thought about this. Did a letter erase 23 years of hurt? Did an apology, no matter how heartfelt, undo the damage that had been done? No, it didn't. But it was a start. It changes this, I said finally. It changes the fact that for 23 years I thought maybe you were right about me, maybe I wasn't good enough, maybe I was an outsider who'd never belong. But now I know, I've always known really, but now I can say it with certainty that I was good enough all along. And knowing that you see it too, that helps. Constance nodded, tears in her eyes. I see it, I finally see it. Looking back, moving forward. That night after everyone had gone home and Violet was asleep, Jonathan and I sat on our back porch, looking out at the Seattle skyline. It was cold, but we were wrapped in blankets, holding cups of hot cider, comfortable in the silence. Do you ever wonder, Jonathan said finally, what our lives would have been like if you'd gotten that first letter? If you'd known what my mother tried to do before we got married? I considered this. Sometimes, I admitted. Would I have left you? Would I have taken the money? Would I have been so hurt that I couldn't move forward? And Jonathan prompted. And I don't think so, I said. I think I would have been devastated. I think I would have cried for days. But I also think I would have shown you the letter and we would have dealt with it together. Maybe we would have eloped instead of having the big wedding. Maybe we would have set stronger boundaries with your mother from the beginning. But I wouldn't have left you, Jonathan, not for all the money in the world. Good, he said, pulling me closer, because you're stuck with me now. 23 years and counting, I teased. Hopefully 23 more, he said seriously, and then 23 after that. I smiled, that's a lot of years. Not nearly enough, he replied. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then Jonathan said something that surprised me. You know what the worst part of all this was, for me? What? Realizing that I'd failed you, he said quietly. I wrote you that letter in 2001 promising to protect you from my mother's judgment, and then I spent the next 23 years not doing that. I saw how she treated you. I saw how you tried so hard, and I told myself it was just her personality, that it wasn't that bad, that you were strong enough to handle it. I was strong enough to handle it, I pointed out. You shouldn't have had to, Jonathan said fiercely. You shouldn't have spent 2 decades of your life proving yourself to someone who'd already decided you weren't good enough. And I should have stood up to her sooner. I should have made it clear that if she couldn't respect you, she couldn't be part of our lives. I should have. I put my finger on his lips, stopping him. Jonathan, you can't rewrite history. Neither can I. We did the best we could with what we knew, and now we're doing better. That's all we can do. He kissed my forehead. How did I get so lucky? You didn't get lucky, I said, echoing what I told Violet a year ago. You chose me, and you kept choosing me every single day for 23 years. That's not luck, that's love. The end and the beginning. It's been over a year now since Violet asked me that question. Why doesn't Grandma love you? A year since I found those letters. A year since everything changed. Constance still isn't perfect. She still makes comments sometimes that sting, though now she catches herself and apologizes. We still aren't close in the way that some daughters and mothers-in-law are. But we're civil. We're respectful. And most importantly, Violet sees 2 grandmothers who, despite their differences and their history, are trying to build something better. My mother and Constance have become unlikely friends. They meet for tea once a month now, just the 2 of them. My mother says that Constance is teaching her about American art history, and Constance says that my mother is teaching her about resilience and grace. It's not a friendship I ever expected, but it's beautiful to watch. Jonathan and I are stronger than ever. Working through this crisis, facing hard truths, setting boundaries, rebuilding trust, has given our marriage a foundation it didn't have before. We talk more now. We don't avoid difficult conversations, and we've promised each other that we'll never let anyone, not even family, make either of us feel less than who we are. And Violet, my beautiful, perceptive, brave 8-year-old daughter, she taught me the most important lesson of all, that sometimes children see the truth more clearly than adults do. That innocence doesn't mean ignorance. That asking the hard questions can lead to healing, even when the answers are painful. Last week, Violet asked me if I was going to keep the letters. The ones from Grandma Constance, I asked, the mean one and the nice one. She nodded. I thought about this. Part of me wanted to burn them to erase all evidence of Constance's cruelty. But another part of me, the part that had learned and grown from this experience, knew that wasn't the answer. Yes, I told Violet. I'm going to keep them both. The mean letter reminds me that I survived something hard. The nice letter reminds me that people can change. And both letters remind me that I was always good enough, even when someone else couldn't see it. Are you going to show them to me when I'm older? Violet asked. Maybe, I said, if you ever need to understand that family is complicated, that people make mistakes, that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it does mean choosing to move forward. Would you want to read them? Violet thought about this seriously. I think so, she said finally, because they're part of our story, and even the hard parts of stories are important. Out of the mouths of babes. So here I am writing this all down, not because I want revenge on Constance, I got past that a long time ago. Not because I want sympathy, I've never been one for pity parties, but because I think there are other women out there who feel the way I felt for 23 years. Women who are trying so hard to be good enough for someone who will never see them clearly. Women who are bending over backwards to win approval that was never theirs to earn. I want those women to know you are good enough, right now exactly as you are. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You don't need to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's narrow vision of who you should be. And if someone treats you with cruelty disguised as concern, with judgment disguised as tradition, with coldness disguised as maintaining standards, that's not about you, that's about them. Their fear, their insecurity, their inability to see beyond their own limited worldview. You deserve better, you've always deserved better. It took me 23 years to truly believe that about myself, but I believe it now. And on the days when I forget, because we all have days when we forget our own worth, I look at Jonathan's letter from 2001, the one that Constance hid from me. I read his words about how I'm genuine, hardworking, and extraordinary, and I remember that I was always those things, even when I couldn't see it myself. My name is Delilah Chen Whitmore. I'm a pediatric nurse, a wife, a mother, a daughter, and a daughter-in-law. I come from a family of immigrants who worked hard to build a life in America. I married into a family of old money and older prejudices, and I spent 23 years trying to bridge those two worlds before I finally realized that I didn't need to bridge anything. I just needed to be myself. And that, in the end, was always good enough. Final thought. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Violet hadn't noticed those letters. If she hadn't asked me that heartbreaking question. Would I still be bending over backwards for Constance's approval? Would I still be doubting myself every time she made a cutting comment? Would I still be carrying the weight of feeling like an outsider in my own family? Probably. But Violet did notice. She did ask. And in asking, she set in motion a chain of events that changed everything. They say that the truth will set you free, but they don't tell you that freedom comes with a price. The price of confronting painful realities. The price of setting boundaries with people you love. The price of accepting that some relationships will never be what you hoped they would be. But you know what? It's worth it. Every difficult conversation, every tear shed, every moment of uncertainty, it's all worth it to finally stand in your truth. To finally know deep in your bones that you are enough. I'm grateful for Violet's question. I'm grateful for those hidden letters as painful as they were to read. I'm grateful for Jonathan's unwavering support. I'm grateful for my mother's example of grace and strength. And yes, I'm even grateful for Constance, not for her cruelty, but for the opportunity her change has given me to practice forgiveness, and to model for Violet what it looks like to move forward without forgetting. This isn't a story about revenge, really. It's a story about revelation, about hidden truths coming to light, about finding your voice after years of silence, about learning that you don't have to accept someone else's narrative about who you are. And it's a story about family, messy, complicated, imperfect family. The family you're born into and the family you choose. The family that hurts you and the family that heals you. The family that makes you question yourself and the family that reminds you of your worth. We're all still a work in progress. Constance is trying to be better. I'm learning to trust her efforts while maintaining healthy boundaries. Jonathan is working to be more present and protective. Violet is growing up watching all of us navigate difficult relationships with honesty and grace. And me, I'm finally learning to see myself the way Jonathan always has, as enough. As worthy, as deserving of love and respect and belonging. It only took 23 years and a hidden letter. But better late than never.